Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is truth. This lesson, the title of today's lesson is Psalms 119. Once again, this lesson is entitled Psalms 119. We will read the entire chapter of Psalms 119 to reiterate to those who believe that there is no law, that the law does exist. And for those of us who understand that lawlessness is unacceptable and it's punishable, and we do understand that we are to keep it, this is to reinforce our position, to remind us, to bring us to remembrance, to ground our anchor in this law. For as we know on a daily basis, we are being flooded, bombarded by our TVs, on our phones, and everything else that we see with all manner of wickedness and violence to the Most High's law. So brace yourselves, tighten up your jaws, do not turn to the left or to the right, or you will get hit in the mouth. We are to walk the straight and narrow way of the Most High's commandments. We are not to deviate to the right hand or to the left hand. We are to walk the straight way. All right. Now, let's go ahead and begin. Psalms 119, verse 1. And it reads, Blessed are the undefiled in the way, who walk in the law of Yah. So you're going to get blessings. You're going to have to walk in his law. Blessed are they that keep his testimonies and that seek him with the whole heart. His testimonies. Testimonies are unchangeable. You change your testimony, you've got perjury. Verse 3. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. Thou hast commanded us to keep thy precepts diligently. Oh, that my ways were directed to keep thy statutes. Then shall I not be ashamed, when I have respect unto all thy commandments. I will praise thee with uprightness of heart, when I shall have learned thy righteous judgments. I will keep thy statutes, O forsake me not utterly. So we are to walk in these statutes, we're to keep them, we're to learn the righteous judgments. And when someone has transgressed the Most High's law, and it's time to put forth justice upon that individual, and justice and judgment, we're not to say, oh, let he who has no sin, let him cast the first stone, and all this other nonsense that you hear out of these Christians. Okay, the judgment is the judgment, and when it's time to render it, that's what we do. We're not to make any excuse not to render the judgment. Verse 9. Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto, according to thy word. So if we are to correct ourselves from being defiled, from being corrupt, from doing violence to the Most High's law, to get a reprieve from the oppression that we're facing, the correct way to do this would be to turn towards the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, take heed to it and to do it. Verse 10, with my whole heart have I sought thee. O let me not wander from thy commandments. A man that wanders from the commandments, he is now in the congregation of the dead. Nothing but strife, nothing but affliction. He is a dead man. He is a blind man. Verse 11, thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not sin against thee. Blessed art thou, O Yah. Teach me thy statutes. With my lips have I declared all the judgments of thy mouth. Now, the judgments of the Most High's mouth is in his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. When I come before you and I read this, this is me doing exactly that. That is me declaring the judgments from the Most High's mouth and from his prophets to the people. Verse 14, I have rejoiced in the way of thy testimonies, as much as in all riches. The testimony of the Most High is his word. You change your testimony, you have perjury. Thus Malachi 3:6. The Most High changes not. Verse 15. I will meditate in thy precepts and have respect unto thy ways. That is the Most High's law. We are to uphold them. Deal bountifully with thy servant, that I may live and keep thy word. Once you decide to turn to the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and you keep his word and you teach it and you live it, by that is how you extend the length of your days. And the contrarian may say, well, I know people who don't keep the Most High's laws that's lived to 80, 90, 70, 60, and they've never kept the law and have walked after the idols of the nations. Excuse me. And I say to that this: you meet a you meet an Israelite, quote unquote, black man, black woman that have lived 80, 90, 70, 60, and you sit down and you have a word with them, all that you will hear out of them in their life is nothing but strife. Most have either plagued them with disease, killed off their children, had their children locked up, and they have had strife all of their life. They live to 90 years old, nothing but trouble, no peace. Verse 18, open thou mine eyes, that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. The law will open up the eyes, allows you to see, it allows you to hear, it removes the fatness from your heart. But before you're able to do that, you must first take the stumbling block, these idols, out of your heart. Verse 19, I am a stranger in the earth. Hide not thy commandments from me. It is not hidden from you. The commandments are nigh unto you. It's in that book that you've got laying at your bedside, on your bedstand. My soul breaketh for the longing that it hath unto thy judgments at all times. Thou hast rebuked the proud that are cursed, which do err from thy commandments. So anytime you err from these commandments, you're going to be corrected. And that's how you see many of our young men, our elderly, etc., being plagued, being killed, being murdered, being afflicted with sickness, being incarcerated, etc., etc. These are plagues. These are individuals who are not walking after the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Verse 22. Remove from me reproach and contempt, for I have kept thy testimonies. Princes also did sit and speak against me, but thy servant did meditate in thy statutes. Thy testimonies also are my delight and my counselors. Now we are to walk in the counsel of the Most High. Our people are in the nations walking after the counsel of Paul, Peter, Harry, Louis, Willie, Bobby, Joey, and Willie, all Europeans. The counsel that we have received pertaining as far as from the prophets are all from men who are of the house of Israel, men who are from our bloodline. So you must be cognizant when you receive counsel, whose counsel are you receiving? For the Most High said that his counsel shall stand, and none other. Verse 25, my soul cleaveth unto the dust. Quicken thou me according to thy word. When you cleave unto the dust, you're a dead man. To shake yourself from the dust is where that awakening begins. Awake, O Israel. Return back unto the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts that you were given at the first. You are to be the leaders of the earth. You are to hold up and to uphold the Most High's righteousness. And so therefore the earth will not know righteousness until you stand up in your lot and teach it and live it. And that way you will be able to shake yourself from the dust. Ezekiel chapter 37. Verse 26. I have declared my ways, and thou heardest me. Teach me thy statutes. Make me to understand the way of thy precepts. So shall I talk of thy wondrous works. My soul melteth for heaviness. Strengthen thou me according unto thy word. Remove from me the way of lying, and grant me the law graciously. I have chosen the way of truth. Thy judgments have I laid before me. The way of truth is his law. You already know this. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. So when you choose truth, you chose God. God is truth. God is righteousness. When you find the truth in the matter, you find God in that matter. Verse 31. I have stuck unto thy testimonies, O Yah. Put me not to shame. I will run the way of thy commandments. when thou shalt enlarge my heart. Teach me, O Yah, the way of thy statutes, and I shall keep it unto the end. Give me understanding, and I shall keep thy law. Yea, I shall observe it with my whole heart. Make me to go in the path of thy commandments, for therein do I delight. Incline my heart unto thy testimonies, and not to covetousness. Turn away from my eyes, turn away mine eyes from beholding vanity, and quicken thou me in thy way. Vanity, idols, lies, falsehood. Verse 38. Establish thy word unto thy servant, who is devoted to thy fear. If you fear the Most High, you walk in his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Thus, wisdom, protection, and strength is given unto you. Verse 39. Turn away my reproach, which I fear, for thy judgments are good. So when it's time to render the judgment, you're not to say something silly like, let he who has the first, or he who has no sin cast the first stone, and all that other madness. A man is walking in transgression against the Most High's law. Whatever judgment he's supposed to get, he gets it. Verse 40. Behold, I have longed after thy precepts. Quicken me in thy righteousness. Teach me that law. Strengthen me in it. Allow me to understand it, that I may perceive it, that I may do it, that I may teach it, that I may uphold it. Verse 41. Let thy mercies come also unto me, O Yah, even thy salvation, according to thy word. So shall I have there wherewith to answer him that reproacheth me. For I trust in thy word. And take not the word of truth utterly out of my mouth, for I have hoped in thy judgments. And this is asking the Most High that he does not turn his face against us, that he does not take that out of our heart and out of our mouth and out of our mind, his law, that it remains with us or within us. So shall I keep thy law continually forever and ever, and I will walk at liberty, for I seek thy precepts. I will speak of thy testimonies also before kings, and will not be ashamed. And I will delight myself in thy commandments, which I have loved. My hands also will I lift up unto thy commandments, which I have loved, and I will meditate in thy statutes. Once again, at 48, verse 48, my hands also will I lift up. Didn't say anything about clasping. Verse 49, remember the word unto thy servant, upon which thou hast caused me to hope. This is my comfort in my affliction, for thy word hath quickened me. In our affliction, our comfort, our protection, that which keeps us from going off the rails, that which keeps us from being harmed, diseased, plagued, and killed off, our protection and the extension of his mercy is his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. 51. The proud have made me greatly, the proud have had me greatly in derision, yet have I not declined from thy law. I remember thy judgments of old, O Yah, and have comforted myself. We are to remember those judgments of old, exactly what the law stated once you transgressed it. And the judgments are the punishments. And once you remember those judgments of old, then you understand clearly that these laws are to be upheld, and any transgression thereof is to be punished swiftly. That way, we will keep all evil out of Israel, the nation, okay, out of our families. 53. Horror has taken hold upon me because of the wickedness, because of the wicked that forsaketh thy law. Now, there are many people in these nations who forsake the Most High's law, who will tell you that there is no law. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, lack of law equals lawlessness. So now we have the heathen in the midst of us, and there are Israelites who are akin to the heathen, who have taken a hold of the heathen's ways, walk after the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and will also serve their idols. And they are in like mind and in allegiance with their enemies. So when you say that homosexuality is disgusting, and it's an abomination before the Most High, punishable by death, they've got something else to say. And they're saying what their enemies are saying. So they're in cahoots with their enemies, and they have taken the Most High's laws and chucked it behind their back and will not enforce judgment or justice and don't want to hear anything about the Most High's law. 54. Thy statutes have been my songs in the house of my pilgrimage. I have remembered thy name, O Yah, in the night, and have kept thy law. This I had because I kept thy precepts. Thou art my portion, O Yah. I have said that I would keep thy words. I entreated thy favor with my whole heart. Be merciful unto me according to thy word. I thought on my ways and turned my feet onto thy testimonies. Now, when you first hear of this law, the first thing you start thinking is, okay, I've done this wrong, I've done that wrong, and you start thinking upon your own ways. And when you think in your heart and you ask yourself, man, is this wrong? Does my actions when I did this thing, does that causes conflict within your family? Does that cause a torment within your own soul? Do you acknowledge that this thing is incorrect? And you can see how this thing can destroy a nation, destroy a family, destroy a person, destroy you. And once you have acknowledged that you have transgressed the Most High, you have done violence to his law, and you see the error of your ways, then you turn your feet away from that wicked path and you turn it towards the Most High and his laws, his statutes, judgments, and precepts once you have thought upon your own ways and recognize them to be evil. All right. I have made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments. As for me, there's some things that I've done before I actually got into this law and started teaching it. There's some things that I've done that I knew they were wrong. But when I got into this law and I started studying it and dissecting myself and seeing how what I was doing was going to affect everything else, I recognized clearly that, yeah, I knew it was wrong, but I never really understood the gravity of the whole situation and the punishments that came with that. It's one thing when you know, okay, this is wrong, but you don't know, hey man, this can get you killed. So once you realize these things, you turn back swiftly. For me, it was right then. It wasn't I'm going to try to not do this anymore. It wasn't that. It was I'm done. Okay. 61. The bands of the wicked have robbed me, but I have not forgotten thy law. So even though our enemies are beating us down and doing all these foul things to us, and they're walking in direct opposition to the Most High as they're doing these things, we are still not to forget the Most High's law. We're to walk in it. At midnight I will rise to give thanks unto thee because of thy righteous judgments. And for all those who are doing wicked towards the children of Israel, there will be righteous judgment given to them. Their ways will be returned upon their own heads. I am a companion of them that fear thee, and of them that keep thy precepts. Now, being a companion of those who keep thy precepts, I am via online. Those of you who are at the channel, and I do converse with some of you via email, and some of you I just respond via the chat because that's how we actually communicate. Some people choose that way, but for the most part, in my immediate vicinity, there's one man that I know of that walk in these laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. He's a European, and him and we're pretty close because he walks in those laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. But I don't know of any brother that I know in my immediate vicinity that actually they're all Christians. They're all Romans. They're all idolaters. But the Israelite community, as far as our people goes, it is growing. And therefore, the people that I do communicate with via online who are walking in righteousness, that certainly strengthens me, encourages me, and it's a good thing to see. But in my immediate vicinity, people that I know, that I see on a daily basis, or that I see often, there's but one man that I know that walks in these laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. 64. The earth, O Yah, is full of thy mercy. Teach me thy statutes. His mercy and the extension thereof is his law. Thou hast dealt well with thy servant, O Yah, according to thy word. Teach me good judgment and knowledge, for I have believed thy commandments. I have placed my trust in them. Because I was afflicted, I went astray, but now have I kept thy word. Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now have I kept thy word. Once you decide to go astray, you're going to be afflicted. And then once you've gone off the rails and you realize all the hardship that's off the path, then what the smart individual does, he returns back onto the way that is right. And that is extended to you by way of his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. That is the mercy that is extended onto you. That is why we have this book here in all of these nations and all of these many different languages. For we were scattered to the four corners of the earth, and we would be speaking all of these weird languages of our enemies. 68. Thou art good, and doest good. Teach me thy judgments. The proud have forged a lie against me, but I will keep thy precepts with my whole heart. Their heart is as fat as grease, but I delight in thy law. Hearts made fat. If your heart is as fat as grease, you don't understand anything. Understanding has been far removed from you. 71. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. So the fact that you're getting busted over the head, you ought to be considering, well, why is this happening to me? Why am I seeing this happen to me generation after generation? Why is this happening to my children? Why am I seeing the same affliction that my parents saw and my grandparents saw and many generations before them? Why is it that my child is seeing the same thing that I saw? And so now you must consider all of this carefully. And once you do that and you see that affliction, then that will cause you to turn to the Most High with your whole heart and your whole soul, that you might learn his statutes. 72. The law of thy mouth is better unto me than thousands of gold and silver. In other words, the most precious thing that we do have is this law. Thy hands have made me and fashioned me. Give me understanding that I may learn thy commandments. They that fear thee will be glad when they see me, because I have hope in thy word. When you meet someone that walks in thy law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, it's an immediate kinship. It's kind of interesting how that works. Verse 75. I know, O Yah, that thy judgments are right, and that thou in faithfulness have afflicted me. So when the Most High busts you upside your head, it's not because he had nothing else better to do that day. It is correction. And once you have been corrected, you are to reflect upon what you have done that may have caused that. You are to repent for it, and you are to do it no more. 76. Let, I pray thee, thy merciful kindness be for my comfort, according to thy word unto thy servant. Let thy tender mercies come unto me, that I may live, for thy law is my delight. 78. Let the proud be ashamed, for they dealt perversely with me without a cause, but I will meditate in thy precepts. So those who are beating us down and doing all of these foul things to us, we are to walk in this law, that we may be protected and we may have some kind of reprieve from what we're experiencing in these nations. Let those that fear thee turn unto me, and those that have known thy testimonies. Let those that fear thee turn unto thee. If you fear the Most High, you will turn unto his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. And those that have known thy testimonies. 80. Let my heart be sound in thy statutes, that I be not ashamed. My soul fainteth for thy salvation, but I hope in thy word. Mine eyes fail for thy word, saying, when wilt thou comfort me? For I am become like a ball in the smoke, yet do I not forget thy statutes. How many are the days of thy servant? When wilt thou execute judgment on them that persecute me? We all want to know this. Most High, when will you stick it to all of these heathen that has done all these foul things to us? He's already doing it. 85. The proud have digged pits for me, which are not after thy law. So all the traps and the snares, Psalms 83, all of these nations have conspired to dig traps and snares for the children of Israel, which are not after the Most High's law. 86. All thy commandments are faithful. They persecute me wrongfully, help thou me. So we know good and well all the commandments are indeed faithful. And the wicked is persecuting us wrongfully. So we reach out to help, or we reach out for help from the Most High. But the only way we're going to be able to even reconcile ourselves onto him, we must first acknowledge our faults, remove ourselves from these idols, turn to his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and walk therein. And there we will have protection, and there we will have judgment for what has been done to us. Marching, protesting, and hollering and screaming in the streets will not get it done. It has not thus far, nor will it ever. Verse 87. They had almost consumed me upon earth, but I forsook not thy precepts. Quicken me after thy loving kindness, so shall I keep the testimony of thy mouth. 89. Forever, O Yah, thy word is settled in heaven. Thy faithfulness is unto all generations. The faithfulness is his law, is his word. That would be his testimonies. To all generation. That's forever. Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth. They continue this day according to thine ordinance, for all are thy servants. Unless the law had been my delight, I should then have perished in mine affliction, because I have turned to the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts of the Most High. Because I have done that, I've been granted peace. I've been granted peace in the midst of my enemies. I've been granted peace in the midst of my people. I've been granted peace in the midst of my house. And I've been granted peace in the midst of my own mind. There's nothing worse than a man who has no peace within his own soul, and then he tries to find peace with other people. It doesn't work. 93. I will never forget thy precepts, for with them thou hast quickened me. I am thine. Save me, for I have sought thy precepts. Now, you didn't have to seek JC. They fed that lie to you. But if you want to find the truth, you got to look for it. And when you find the truth, it will be found in its original form, unchanged. The truth cannot be changed. So when you seek the Most High and you seek after his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, you will find them intact. They cannot be changed. Verse 95. The wicked have waited for me to destroy me, but I will consider thy testimonies. I have seen an end of all perfection, but thy commandment is exceedingly broad. There are no end to those commandments. They are forever. 97. O how love I thy law. It is my meditation all the day. Thou through thy commandments have made me wiser than my enemies, for they are ever with me. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation. Once you decide to turn to this law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, your patience become increased, your knowledge is increased, your knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is increased, and everything becomes increased, including your lifespan. 100. I understand more than the ancients, because I kept thy precepts. I have refrained my feet from every evil way, that I might keep thy word. Once you start walking in his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, you're not trying to have a conversation about some foolishness. That's walking contrary to the Most High's law. And people will stay away from you with that type of madness because they know exactly on what ground you stand. 102. I have not departed from thy judgments, for thou hast taught me. 103. How sweet are thy words unto my taste, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Through thy precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way. The Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts is how we gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Once you decide to deviate from that path, you become deaf and blind, and you become dumb. So the simplest of things you're not able to understand, nor perceive. 105. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. You already know Proverbs 6:23. Okay? When you hold that lamp before you, you're able to see where you're going. Okay? And if you're maneuvering in darkness, i.e. wickedness, then your progress is impeded. It's very simple. 106. I have sworn, and I will perform it, that I will keep thy righteous judgments. Which means when someone is in opposition to this law, they're to be punished. It's really simple as that. That's how you keep the righteous judgments. You don't say, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, or some foolishness like that. 107. I am afflicted very much. Quicken me, O Yah, according unto thy word. Accept, I beseech thee, the freewill offerings of my mouth, O Yah, and teach me thy judgments. The freewill offerings of my mouth. We are unable to present any offering because the Most High does not have a temple standing currently, and the Levites have been displaced throughout the nations with the rest of us. So when we do offer anything now, we can only offer the calves of our lips. We are to find out where Jerusalem is from our houses. We're to face that direction when we pray. We're to lift our hands in prayer, acknowledge our faults, and to offer the calves of our lips in that fashion when you decide to mess up or when you decide to turn from messing up. All right. 109. My soul is continually in my hand, yet do I not forget thy precepts. You have the freedom to make choices. You have the freedom to choose life, choose death, choose affliction, hardship, struggle, curses, or choose these blessings. That's within your hand. That's within your mind. That choice is yours. 110. The wicked have laid a snare for me, yet I erred not from thy precepts. Thy testimonies have I taken as an heritage forever, for they are the rejoicing of my heart. I have inclined my heart to perform the statutes always, even unto the end. I hate vain thoughts, but thy law do I love. Thou art my hiding place and my shield. I hope in thy word. The law, statutes, judgments, and precepts is what protects us. It's what shields us. It's what hides us from all the madness that we're seeing and experiencing every day that we don't have to endure because we are anchored in this law. 115. Depart from me, ye evildoers, for I will keep the commandments of my strength. Uphold me according unto thy word, that I may live, and let me not be ashamed for my hope. Hold thou me up, and I shall be safe, and I will have respect unto thy statutes continually. We are to have respect unto the Most High's laws continually, generation after generation after generation, never ending. 118. Thou hast trodden down all them that err from thy statutes, for their deceit is falsehood. So, all of those who have departed from the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, started telling you some European died for you on Calvary and rose up in 3 days and told you that you were no good and you're black people and you're nobody and all of that. All the men of Israel at the Most High, that all the men of Israel has been teaching this madness to our people, the Most High have trodden them down and will continue to trod them down. For they have separated themselves and estranged themselves from the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. And their deceit is nothing but falsehood. And their deceit is the fact that they have that stumbling block of that idol in their heart that was taught to them by their enemies. 119. Thou puttest away all the wicked of the earth like dross. Therefore I love thy testimonies. All the wicked, all those that walk contrary to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, precepts, he's put them away, and he's going to remove them. He's going to kill them. He's going to uproot them from the earth, which means they will not allow to have any children here. They will have no seed here. He will remove them generation after generation until there's none. And dross is the impurities that's left after you have forged metal, i.e. gold. If you're making a gold bar, there are certain processes that you have to go through. It takes some time to get the pure gold. And until it gets to that stage, there are impurities that's removed. Those impurities are dross. They're no good. They're utterly removed. And that's what's going to happen to those who turn away from the Most High's laws and teach this falsehood. They're going to be removed as the dross. 20. My flesh trembleth for fear of thee, and I am afraid of thy judgments. And once you become fearful of the Most High's judgments, then you walk in them. I have done judgment and justice. Leave me not to mine oppressors. Be surety for thy servant for good. Let not the proud oppress me. Mine eyes fail for thy salvation and for the word of thy righteousness. Deal with thy servant according unto thy mercy, and teach me thy statutes. I am thy servant. Give me understanding, that I may know thy testimonies. It is time for thee, Yah, to work, for they have made void thy law. Let me repeat that one more time. It is time for thee, Yah, to work, for they have made void thy law. The nations have made void the Most High's law. They said there is no law. They said JC came, died, went up in 3 days to prepare some place in the sky for you, and therefore you do not have to be in adherence to any law. And that is why you see lawlessness in the midst of these nations. For they have told you there is no law. They have made void the Most High's law. 127. Therefore, I love thy commandments above gold, yea, above fine gold. Therefore, I esteem all thy precepts concerning all things to be right, and I hate every false way. 129. Thy testimonies are wonderful. Therefore doth my soul keep them. The entrance of thy words giveth light. It giveth understanding unto the simple. That's what the law does. The entrance of thy words giveth light. Remember, the commandment is a light. Okay? Commandment is a light, the law is lamp. Okay? And so when you have these things, you have this light before you, it gives you understanding, it gives you wisdom. It makes the man that's not so smart seem like a genius. All right? Now, 131. I opened my mouth and panteth, for I longed for thy commandments. I look thou unto me, and be merciful unto me, as thou usest to do unto those that love thy name. So we want the Most High to go ahead and extend his mercy unto us like he has done in the days of old to those who called upon his name and to those who placed their trust in him. Order my steps in thy word, and let not any iniquity have dominion over me. So we don't want any sin to be controlling us. We don't have sin to be stronger. So in order to kind of fight off all those wicked thoughts, wicked deeds, wicked people, we ought to immerse ourselves in this law and stay anchored in it. Deliver me from the oppression of man, so will I keep thy precepts. Make thy face to shine upon thy servant, and teach me thy statutes. Rivers of waters run down mine eyes, because they kept not thy law. It's a hurtful thing To see the children of Israel crying in the street, marching in the street, getting shot down and killed. It's a painful thing to see that. And some of you may see this thing and it makes you cry. It hurts you. And the reason why all of these rivers of waters keeps running down our faces is because they, our people, have not kept thy law and has been led to believe that there is no law. 137. Righteous art thou, O Yah, and upright are thy judgments. Thy testimonies that thou hast commanded are righteous and very faithful. My zeal has consumed me, because mine enemies have forgotten thy words. Thy word is very pure, therefore thy servant loveth it. I am small and despised, yet do not I forget thy precepts. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Now you know we're going to do that one more time. Psalms 119, 142, and it reads, Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Truth is law, law is righteousness. They both endure forever, and they are all encompassing of the Most High. 143. Trouble and anguish have taken hold on me, yet thy commandments are my delight. The righteousness of thy testimonies is everlasting. Give me understanding, and I shall live. I cried with my whole heart, hear me, O Yah, I will keep thy statutes. I cried unto thee, save me, and I shall keep thy testimonies. I prevented the dawning of the morning, and cried, I hope in thy word. Mine eyes prevent the night watches, that I might meditate in thy word. Hear my voice according unto thy loving kindness, O Yah. Quicken me according to thy judgment. They draw nigh that follow after mischief. They are far from the law. Those who follow after mischief, wickedness, lawlessness, those that have gone off the rails, they are far removed from the Most High's law. 151. Thou art near, O Yah, and all thy commandments are truth. So, yes, he's near. He is within your heart. He's also sitting there at your bedstand. All of his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts are a direct representation of him. It is that book that you possess that you have not read or read sometimes that you are to read daily. 152. Concerning thy testimonies, I have known of old that thou hast founded them forever. Certainly we will read that again. Psalms 119, 152. Concerning thy testimonies, I have known of old, I've known since the days of old, that thou hast founded them forever, unchangeable throughout all generations. 153. Concerning mine affliction, consider mine affliction and deliver me, for I do not forget thy law. Plead my cause and deliver me. Quicken me according to thy word. Salvation is far from the wicked, for they seek not thy statutes. Let me read that one more time. Salvation is far from the wicked, for they seek not thy statutes. So, the only way you're getting salvation is when you seek these laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts of the Most High. That's how you become saved. No one saves you. You save yourself based on the decision that you make, turning away from wickedness onto the path of righteousness. That's how you become saved. No one has to die for you, and no one has to take your big old head and dip it down in some water someplace. This is the nonsense that you've been told. The wicked is far removed from the Most High's law. They will not seek it. Most of them will not even hear it. 156. Great are thy tender mercies, O Yah. Quicken me according to thy judgments. Many are my persecutors and mine enemies, yet do I not decline from thy judgments. I beheld the transgressors and was grieved, because they kept not thy law. It grieves you and your family members don't want to keep the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. They don't want to keep the Sabbath. They could care less about Passover. They're going to continue to do Easter. They're going to do Christmas and share the gifts and have JC up on the wall and all these other things. And it pains you to see this. However, they have to make their own decision. All you can do is present the information and let the chips fall as they may. 159. Consider how I love thy precepts. Quicken me, O Yah, according to thy loving kindness. Thy word is true from the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever. We will read that one more time. Psalms 119, verse 160. Thy word is true from the beginning. From the beginning it's been true. It's going to be true in the middle. It's going to be true in the end, because Malachi 3:6, the Most High states clearly that he changes not. And if his testimonies were ever to change, then he has committed perjury, and that's a lie, and that's not possible with the Most High. Hope you're getting all of that. 119, 160. Thy word is true from the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever, not sometimes. 161. Princes have persecuted me without a cause, but my heart standeth in awe of thy word. I rejoice at thy word, as one that findeth great spoil. I hate and abhor lying, but thy law do I love. 7 times a day do I praise thee, because of thy righteous judgments. Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. Great peace. If your house has no peace, if your life has no peace, if your mind has no peace, you can get it. The cure to your ills, simply turn into this law. All right. 166. Yah, I have hoped for thy salvation and done thy commandments. My soul hath kept thy testimonies, and I love them exceedingly. I have kept thy precepts and thy testimonies, for all my ways are before thee. Let me cry, come near before thee. O Yah, give me understanding according to thy word. Let my supplication come before thee. Deliver me according to thy word. My lips shall utter praise, when thou hast taught me thy statutes. My tongue shall speak of thy word, for all thy commandments are righteousness. Let me reread that one more time so you understand that these commandments have never been done away with. This law has never been done away with. There is no such thing as there is no law, and someone died for you and the law was your schoolmaster. JC went up into heaven for 3 days, and so therefore you can be lawless. Once again, let's start at 70. 170. Let my supplication come before thee. Deliver me according to thy word. My lips shall utter praise, when thou hast taught me thy statutes. My tongue shall speak of thy word, for all thy commandments are righteous. 173. Let thine hand help me, for I have chosen thy precepts. I have longed for thy salvation, O Yah, and thy law is my delight. Let my soul live, and it shall praise thee, and let thy judgments help me. I have gone astray like a lost sheep. Seek thy servant, for I do not forget thy commandments. So if you are ever to go astray, once you have left that path of righteousness, if you should ever do that, then life becomes hard for you. However, you keep asking the Most High to keep his spirit upon you, That way, if you should ever lose your mind and do that, that a spirit will be placed upon you to reach back and to turn back onto that path that you're supposed to be on. So that concludes Psalms 119. Love that psalm. It really reiterates to all Israel and to the stranger that will take a hold of the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts that this thing is still in full effect. This is what keeps us on the path, keeps us protected, keeps us covered. The law of the Most High is what kept the nation of Israel intact. It is the glue to our family. Failure to have that glue causes the whole family to fall apart. So if we are to reconcile ourselves back onto each other and to remove that hate that's in our heart towards our brother and our brethren, the first thing that we must do as individuals, we must first reconcile ourselves back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. And once we start doing that as individuals, then the Most High, once we as individuals reconcile ourselves back onto the Most High, stop doing violence to his law, stop walking after the enemies and their idols and their ways and their customs, and stop marrying them and doing all the other foul things that we're doing, then once we as individuals have reconciled ourselves onto the Most High, then he starts to reconcile us back onto each other, because now we're actually moving on the same page. Right now, if you line up 100 black men, 100 Israelites in a room, the ideology is extreme. We're not on the same page at all, and we will never be. The only page that we're going to be on as a collective is going to be this law. Lack of this law is nothing but chaos. It's lawlessness. And because we do not have this law, we do not have no cohesion. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Peace, Israel, and peace to the stranger that will take a hold of the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and will do it, and will not blaspheme the Most High, talking about there is no law. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless.